Cole Maness, livestock agent here in Guilford County.
And I'm Vincent Webb, one of your family consumer sciences agents here in Guilford County.
Today we're going to talk about how to cook a steak if you don't have a grill at home. So today we're going to talk about cooking steaks if you don't have a grill at home. We're going to look at 3 different common cuts of steaks that you can buy at your local grocer. The first one we're going to talk about is a sirloin steak. A sirloin steak comes from the sirloin of a beef cow right along the top of the back. A sirloin is a leaner cut of beef. If you don't like a lot of fat, that would be a great cut to use. The second cut we're going to talk about is the ribeye steak. The ribeye steak is probably the most common cut that you hear about when people talk about cooking steaks. The ribeye is a little more fatty, it's juicier, it's more flavorful, but if you don't like fat, you may want to stay away from that cut. The third cut we're going to talk about is a strip loin, or a New York strip. The New York strip also comes from the loin area of a beef cow. A strip is fattier, slightly more fat, has more marbling than a sirloin, but less fat than a ribeye. It's a good in-between piece if you like juiciness and flavor, but want to stay away from kind of the big globs of fat. So, what we're going to talk about a little bit is, as you can see, hopefully on some of these packages, you have these stickers right here. This sticker says USDA Prime. This indicates the grade of beef that we're cooking. There's 3 main grades that you're gonna see when you look at steaks. You're gonna see prime, choice, and select. Prime is gonna be the very top choice. It's gonna be the very highest grade that you can buy. They're gonna be more expensive, but they're gonna be a lot more flavorful, and they're gonna have a lot more marbling. So marbling is the fat inside of the muscle. It's the little strings of fat that you see running inside the beef, not the fat along the edges. The next grade that you're going to see is choice. Choice is kind of the in-between. Choice is still juicy and flavorful, but it's not as lean as the last grade, which is select. Select is the leanest grade that you're going to see on steaks. It's going to be the lowest price point, and it's not going to be quite as juicy and flavorful as choice and prime, but it's still a good cut to use, a good grade of steak to buy. You're going to see choice and prime. That's usually what you're going to get when you go to a restaurant. If you go to Texas Roadhouse or Outback or any of those steakhouses, you're usually going to be able to get a choice or a prime steak. Almost all of their steaks are going to be choice and prime. So the next thing we're going to talk about is cooking temps. So cooking temps is a big thing with beef. Since these cuts are not processed, they're whole cuts. They don't have to be cooked like hamburger meat does. You can cook them at lower temperatures and still have a safe and enjoyable product. So the first one we're going to talk about is rare. So rare would be 125 degrees Fahrenheit. The next would be medium rare. Medium rare is 135 degrees Fahrenheit. Medium rare is going to be, it's going to be browned on the edges, but it's going to have a dark red center. Medium is 145 degrees Fahrenheit. Medium would be browned on the edges with pink along the inside, so kind of a bright pink on the inside. Medium well is cooked to 150 degrees Fahrenheit. Medium well is going to have just a slight amount of pink in the middle, mostly brown. And then well done. Well done is 160 degrees Fahrenheit, and that is going to be brown throughout with very little to slight pink in the middle.
Good segue. Cole has just told you about cooking temperatures and just what you will get as a result of that. And he is right. It is a whole cut of meat, so it hasn't been processed. So you got a little bit of leeway because on the inside it's sterile, free of pathogens, or supposed to be, right? All right. One of the things that he just gave me is a sirloin. So we're gonna just talk about some of the ways that you can actually season or have things complement. So some folks, they really like to use peppers. Some folks like to use onions, and we have some of those down here. We actually have two cuts. We have more of a julienne style of pepper, and then we have more of a diced or cubed style of pepper. And then we have a famous blend here, a little bit of rosemary, salt, pepper, sage, as well as thyme. Some of those green leafy herbs go really well with the beef. All right, they bring out the flavor. And we don't want to forget things like our aromatics, like our garlic. We just mentioned the onion, but we want to make sure we get that garlic in there because it can be a flavor enhancer. All right, and then we have not so much the oil, but the vinegar. You can use types of vinegars. You can even use citrus. I don't have it on me today to flavor and also tenderize. That acid really kind of breaks it down and stuff like that. Now let's get back to those cooking temps. 145 is prime when it comes to food safety. We know that. All right, when it comes to a whole cut of meat. All right, but these guys, when you're cooking it, you're really concerned about that outside because that's the part that has been exposed, all right? And the inside, what allows you to go to that medium rare or medium type of setting and allow you to get that maybe pink center or get it just like you want it when you cut into it is because it is sterile on the inside and you can get that little bit of leeway. But 145 is a standard cooking temperature for internal temperature for any whole cut of meat.
So, today we're going to talk about cooking a steak if you don't have a grill at home. One of the best ways to do this is what we call a pan sear method. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this beautiful ribeye right here and we're going to season it up and we're going to put it on a cast iron pan. You can use, cast iron is what I like to use. It holds heat really well. You can finish it by putting it in the oven and bringing it back out. The pan just is real versatile. You can also use steel and transfer it to something else to put it into the oven. However, whatever you have available is how I would do it, but I do like cast iron as my favorite method. So, the way we're going to start off is we want to get this ribeye out of the package. We want to take some paper towels and we just want to get it as dry as we can possibly get it, all the way around the edges, and just get the whole thing as dry as we can possibly get it, because we don't want that extra moisture when we're cooking this steak right here. We want to get all that excess moisture from the package off of it and get it as dry as we can get it. So from there, what we're going to do is we're going to use some canola oil, or you can also use peanut oil, and we're just going to put a little bit of oil on that steak and just rub it in. This is going to help the seasoning hold to it, but it's also going to help the steak sear really well. So we just want it to get that nice dark crust on it. We don't want to cook a gray steak. That is my worst fear, is a gray steak. So what we're going to do is we're just going to rub that oil in on it, and it doesn't matter how much is on there, coat it with it. Get a good coating on there. And once we have that coated up really well, what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of salt. Some coarse salt works best, and we're going to take that salt and we're going to salt it down really good, because steaks need salt, and just kind of rub that salt into that meat a little bit, all around the edges and the face of it, and go ahead and get both sides of it really well. You really can't over salt red meat. It takes salt really well. So we want to get it coated really good, press it down in there. And then we're going to put a little bit of black pepper. And you can go a little overboard with the black pepper, so be careful with that, for sure. You can use whatever seasonings you like, really, but steaks really, they just don't need a whole lot. Just salt and pepper usually does the trick. I like to use a little garlic powder sometimes, but for this method, we're going to use fresh garlic, so we really don't need that garlic powder here. So we've got our steak seasoned up really well. You can see it's got the salt and the pepper, and everything's looking good. So what we're going to do from here is I've got the oven preheated to 450 degrees. I've got my cast iron skillet in the oven. What we're going to do is we're going to get that skillet out of the oven, and we're going to put it right here on the cooking surface, and then we're going to sear this steak. We're going to sear it for about 2 minutes, just one side of it for about 2 minutes, and then we're going to flip it, and then we're going to put it back in the oven, and then we're going to get it back out. So I'm going to grab this skillet, and we're going to sear this steak. So you see we got our cast iron skillet here. We're going to throw this thing on high. It's already good and hot. Our cooking surface might take a little bit to heat up, but since we put that cast iron in the oven, it's already good and hot, and we can go ahead and just throw that steak in there. And you can hear that sizzle. That's what you want to hear. You can hear that thing sizzle a little bit. We're just looking to get that nice brown crust on that steak. We don't need to put any extra oil or anything in the pan. We've already put our oil on our steak, and it's got enough fat in it that it should cook itself. So we're just gonna let this right here sear pretty good, and then we're gonna put it in the oven.
That's recording now, so I'm gonna do the recording.
All right, y'all. Now, sometimes what I like to do with meat in particular, I like to just simply cut it in little pieces, strips, almost like little planks, and I just like to throw it right on in and get a stir fry going. But what I like to do is to go ahead and you can do one or the other. Some people do the vegetables first, some people do the meat. I like to do the meat first whenever I do a stir fry or just a simple saute. We're gonna use real high heat, just a little bit of oil, throw it in, really get it incorporated, and see if we can achieve that 145 real quickly. And then what I'll do, I'll remove the little bit of what we call back in the day fawn, or the little stuff down at the bottom. We'll get that loosened up, we'll coat those vegetables and get that incorporated, and then I'll add my meat back to kind of finish. And then we also have a cut that we're gonna just simply put it in the oven, and just maybe do a little oven broil. So yeah, we'll go ahead and do that. And Cole already showed you the stovetop work. So mainly what I want to do is show you the stir fry method. So I'll go ahead and put a little bit of oil, drop that thing in there. It's hot now. Get it while it's hot, right? We're gonna throw it. We'll just throw them in. Throw them right on in. Move that around. A little bit incorporated. Now what I coated this with is kind of like a garlic pepper mix. So it's got a little bit of spice to it. We're gonna keep that moving. Same with the stir fry. You always want to keep it moving. All right, keep it pushing. That's how you want to do that there. Spread it on out so you can get all the meat, get it in the center, let it do its thing, and then we'll give it a couple flips, a couple tosses, all right? And y'all might say, oh, why does brother working with one glove. I really don't like to cut with the gloves that are not skin tight on my cutting hand. But the hand that I handle the meat, which is the concern of which is the safety concern, I always put a glove on. But this hand I like to keep free. Just a personal preference, but I always remember to keep it food safe. All right. And again, this meat, as Cole pointed out before, this particular meat has already been processed. A process is simply taking it into a different form. So even cooking is a process. When I cut it, as we were saying before, that is a process. So now that it has been, the knife has brought whatever is on the outside to the inside, this needs to be particularly 145. And look at that nice, those nice juices coming right on out.
So, as you can see, we've got our steak back out of the oven. So what we're going to do is we're going to put it back on the stove top on about a medium-high heat. What we're going to do now is we're going to add in some garlic. We're going to add in about 2 tablespoons of butter, and then we're going to add in some fresh thyme. What we're going to do with that is we are going to let that butter melt, and we're going to get that garlic and thyme and really get those aromatics out. That garlic and that thyme are real good aromatics that'll bring out a lot of natural beef flavor into this steak. We're going to let that butter melt down. I'm going to grab a spoon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this while this butter right here melts. I don't know if you can see what that looks like in there, but we're just going to tilt the pan back a little bit, and we're just going to spoon that butter and that thyme and that garlic mixture right over top of that steak. Just try to keep it on the heat and just spoon that over that. We're going to do that for just a couple of minutes, about 1 to 3 minutes, give or take. Just really get that flavor into that steak. I don't know if I said it before, but we were cooking in the oven at 450. We put that steak in there for about 6 to 7 minutes, depending. Now that, about 6 minutes on this steak should get us about medium. So, I'm going to keep on spooning on this right here. Really get those juices in there. This garlic really bring out that flavor and all of that. And then once we have done that for just a few minutes, like I said, about 1 to 3 minutes of doing that right there, what we're going to do is we're going to pull our steak off of the heat, and we're going to let it rest. Now this is really important when you're cooking any kind of beef. You want to let it rest. So we're going to let this steak right here rest for about 5 minutes before we ever cut it. The reason we want to do that is we want those juices to incorporate back all the way throughout that steak, and if we cut it right now, all of the juice is going to run out of it. We want that juice to really just suck back into that steak and add some juiciness and flavor to it. So we're going to let it rest for 5 minutes, and then we're going to cut it. And it's also going to cook. While it's resting, it's going to cook some more because all that heat is still there, so it's going to cook through a little more. So wait to take your temperature until it's rested a little bit.
So folks, yep, reading, thermometer temps, and we have been cooking at high heat for a pretty good while. So we have achieved 145. So what I'm gonna do, go ahead and take this guy out. Now it would be nice if I had a quick, sensitive thermometer. We'll go ahead and take this guy out, these guys out, and really just kind of try to leave some of those juices in there. So when we get ready to do this, we get to the nitty gritty. Now what I like to do is go ahead and just add these aromatics first. Okay. We got some garlic there, go ahead and use all of that. Go ahead and get that incorporated. Cook it up there. We'll go ahead and do the diced onions. Go ahead and add those. Incorporate it. Okay. Let's go ahead and do these julienne peppers in a few minutes once we get a good little caramelization. Nothing like that flavor. All right, everybody. Get it smelling in here. Onions jumping. Okay. A little bit more. Coat it. Get them to the center. That's where all your heat is. Right? Let them do their thing. Let's slide this on over. And sometimes what I like to do is to get a little, sprinkle a little spices and herbs in there with it. Get a little slurry going. Okay. That. Throw these in there. And I like my peppers kind of crisp, so I really don't need them to cook a long time. All right. Give them a quick swish. I'll throw a few more in there. Leave that for another. Throw a few more spices and herbs in there. You definitely could have this over a whole grain such as brown rice, quinoa, and the like. You could even go so far as to get all fancy if you want to. Farro or something like that. That's what you want to do. You like them. This allows you to incorporate those vegetables. And let me not forget, if you wanted to, you can do a little bit of broccoli. I do like my broccoli kind of crunchy. Now we got these, they should have been thrown in at the beginning, but we got some small florets we can incorporate. Now I'll let them do their thing. Kind of get coated for a little while. A couple more in there. I'm a crunchy guy, so it don't matter to me, but you really want to throw them in according to the hardness. But as a cook, sometimes you give a little something, but be all right. Come out just like you want it. Toss it around in there. Then we'll add the meat back. Just allow it to do its thing. See how we just keep that moving, huh? Broccoli gonna be super crunchy, ain't it? And that right there is a pretty decent little stir fry medley combination there. All right. And we can just take that guy off and let it kind of do its thing. All right, now we do have this here that's gonna go into the oven, but yeah, that'll be for us to enjoy later.
So our steak is done, it's rested. We're gonna cut into it here. And we're gonna get some good shots right here of us cutting into it. I don't know if you can see or not, but it looks like we have about a perfect medium right there. Just a good warm pink, mostly brown, but just a pink in there. And this steak right here is ready to go.